2024 was an exciting year to be creating content for Hunt Lab. During it, I became an official Crytek partner and published around 20 videos and over 75 shorts. Of those 20 videos, 9 of them were mechanics deep dives. This video is going to compile those all into one, as well as added commentary when things have received certain updates. Please enjoy the best of Hunt Lab for 2024. Explosive ammo is the black sheep of Hunt's custom ammo, with many players just relegating it to a meme. Even though it has plenty of jank to it, it has some unique applications that other ammos couldn't dream of doing. Stick around to learn the advantages and disadvantages of explosive ammo, unique use cases, and some bizarre mechanics that are going to leave you scratching your head. First of all, what is explosive ammo and how does it work? Well, damage with explosive ammo is actually dealt into two parts, the projectile and the explosion. The projectile part does significantly less damage than other ammo types, and this results in a notably shorter headshot range. They actually made an update to headshots, where all headshots kill regardless of distance. So, explosive ammo now can headshot regardless of distance. The explosion half of the damage doesn't change no matter how far you are from your target. So whether they're 10 meters or 100 meters, it's going to deal the same damage. The weird part about this is the damage from the explosion is calculated based on the explosion's distance to the feet. With the exception of nitro, explosive ammo does 50 damage at max. So if you shoot right next to the foot, you're going to do at or pretty near 50 damage. But if you shoot someone in the upper chest because you've moved that explosion away from the feet, the damage from the explosion is going to be in the range of about 30 to 36. It took me a long time to figure this out because for some reason my explosions were getting really inconsistent damage. But then thankfully a commenter on one of my research streams suggested that the explosive damage was based on the distance to the foot, which all of a sudden made everything make sense. In addition, if you look at this, in the shooting range, if you use explosive ammo and shoot someone in the chest, you'll see two numbers appear, one for the explosion, one for the chest. Now look at where these numbers are located. One's up by the chest and one's down by the feet. The interesting thing that this does, if you're shooting in a mid to long range, all of a sudden a lower chest or even a leg shot is going to be doing more damage or equal damage than an upper chest shot. Now, the fact that the explosion doesn't do less damage over range gives explosive ammo a really interesting advantage of having an extended 2-shot range. These values have been changed in-game, but the concept still applies. Your 2-shot range for explosive ammo is extended. Now, that's at the cost of velocity, so shots are going to be a little harder to hit. Alright, so what uses does explosive ammo actually have? Well, some world interactions to be aware of is it can explode barrels instantly. Red and yellow barrels explode immediately when you shoot them. If you shoot near them, you will light the fuse on them, like when they take any other damage. But you can also set off green barrels. You can kill birds with the explosion from the explosive ammo. If they're crows on land, simply shoot the explosion in the middle and it'll kill the whole flock. But if it's ducks in water, you actually have to aim at one of the ducks for it to connect and make the explosion happen. Be aware that the explosion from the explosive ammo will damage items, whether they're coming off of the Dr. Grunt or Scrap Beak. Use it with caution. Now for consumables, any fused consumable will be detonated when it gets hit by the explosion. I think one of the biggest arguments for explosive ammo is all around sieging. You can destroy most doors and shutters with one shot, and some doors with two. So, if you have explosive ammo on you, it can be really useful when you're going up against a team that's hunkered down in a compound. Not only can you take the doors off the hinges, you can also shoot around corners.
Got one.
Meaning, you can check corners before going around with explosive ammo to make sure there's not a shotgun hiding around it. Or if you hit someone once and they're running for cover, it could be useful to shoot at that corner so the explosion goes around them and hits them while they're trying to heal and hopefully snag a kill. In addition, when you're shooting around corners, the explosion sets off any traps that are there. So it's a good idea to use this to clear any doorways you might be suspicious of. Not only that, it's also extremely potent against the dreaded concertina camper. Shooting a few rounds into a bramble of concertina will quickly clear it out. And if you're using the nitro with explosive ammo, if you place your shot just right, you can actually remove an entire concertina bomb's worth of wire using only a single shot. Noise aside, if you're in a moment of need, it's also a great way to take out hives and immolators. A single shot to the body will eliminate these instantly. In addition, immolators will still be doing their fiery explosion. So this isn't going to be the only way you want to do it because of all the noise, but if you're in a panic situation, it is an option. Explosive ammo isn't great against water devils, but for meatheads, the Mako took 4 shots to down one and the uppercut actually did it in 6. Just to establish a baseline, I only did it with the Mako and the uppercut. Then, if you do it with the nitro, that'll take him in 1 shot. For traits, the big one to be aware of is Bulwark. If you're taking explosive ammo, it's a decent one to have on just in case you get in a fight where you end up shooting someone who's too close to you and you take some splash damage. More importantly, be aware that if other players have Bulwark, your damage is going to be reduced when firing at them. So if you don't seem to be doing enough damage for some reason, keep this in mind, this is likely the case. It's a pretty common 2-point trait, so there will be people you run into who use it. Now, the other 2 traits to consider are levering with the Mako and fanning with the uppercut. The Mako is actually an excellent option for bringing along explosive ammo, especially if you end up having to breach a compound. It's extremely useful. With levering, you can quickly take down any door even if it takes 2 shots and push in from there. Then the levering with the explosive ammo can be extremely useful to apply a lot of pressure to someone who's just down a sight. Here, there was a hunter hiding around the corner, so I throw in bees who started aggroing him and used the levering with the explosive ammo to finish him off. The uppercut is the only pistol that can take explosive ammo. It also has a slightly smaller blast radius and quicker damage fall off than the other explosive ammo weapons. So that being said, you should only take explosive ammo on the uppercut if you feel confident that your main gun is the only one you're going to want for PvP, and that the uppercut is there primarily just for breaking doors while breaching and potentially exploding barrels. Otherwise, I think you're probably giving up more value than you're gaining with the uppercut. But hey, I'm not going to stop you if you want to go memeing with dually uppercuts with explosive ammo. It doesn't have to be good to have fun. I think the best argument for explosive ammo is with the Martini, Henry, or the Springfield, mostly because these are single shot weapons, and if you're already taking them, you can take that second ammo type without losing whatever your preferred ammo type is. This gives you all the advantages of being able to use it for breaching purposes without losing the benefits of your primary ammo type. Then we have the Nitro Express. The benefit is that the Nitro's explosions do 85 damage and can 2-shot regardless of how far away the enemy is. Fun fact is that the Nitro actually has an infinite 2-shot range. Because the blast from its explosion does somewhere around 80 damage, that means no matter how far away you shoot someone with it, it's a 2-shot kill. That kill?
Yep, 86 and 7.
The 2 big downsides though with the Nitro is that the explosive ammo has an extremely sharp damage drop off, which means your 1-hit kill range is significantly shorter than with any of the other ammo types. In addition, because it's explosive, it has no penetration. Those 2 downsides make it a really hard sell to suggest on the Nitro. Regardless of whatever else you have in your loadout, chances are if you start using the explosive ammo, you're gonna be running out. So you're gonna wanna make sure to include at least 1 ammo box in whatever loadout you bring. Incendiary Ammo is a pyromaniac's favorite ammunition. It can be used to light hunters, monsters, and world items ablaze. It also has a few quirks to it, and several downsides, so you need to be careful when you use it. Stick around to learn the ins and outs of this ammunition, and when you might want to use it, and when you should consider avoiding it. So the most obvious part of Incendiary Ammo is that it lights hunters on fire. When you set an enemy on fire, their screen gets covered with flames, and additional, their max HP rapidly reduces. And if enough burns off, they're going to lose permanent bars of health. But keep in mind that advanced players are going to keep their cool, and they're going to be able to push through the fight while on fire. So don't assume just because someone's burning that they're not going to be aggressive. A lot of people become more aggressive when you light them on fire. Sometimes it'll do it in the first hit, and sometimes the second. There are a few factors that control this, so let's dig into it. Each ammo has a designated ignite range. When they updated damage drop-off ranges, that also impacts the ignite range. So, medium ammo now has a damage drop-off range at 30 meters instead of 20, so it'll ignite on the first hit if you hit them within 30 meters. And as far as I can tell, this syncs up to the same range where damage drop-off begins. Here's a chart showing each gun that can currently use incendiary ammo and when its drop-off begins. Meaning, if you shoot a hunter within this range, they'll ignite on the first shot. If you shoot them beyond the range, you'll only do some char damage. But if they already have that char damage, then the next shot with incendiary ammo is going to ignite them. Keep in mind that if someone has the salve skin trait, incendiary ammo will never ignite on the first shot. But let's take a quick look at some of these numbers. With the exception of the Bornheim silencer and the Winfield silencer, which have an ignite range of 10, all other compact and medium ammo weapons have an ignite range of 20. The long ammo pistols also fall into this range, like the uppercut and the sparks. The sparks silencer is the only gun at 30 meters, then the rest of the long ammo rifles are going to be at the 40 meter range. Keep in note that the 2-slot variants match whatever gun they belong to. So the Mosin Obraz has an ignite range of 40 meters, and the uppercut precision has an ignite range of 20 meters, since it's still considered a pistol. Now, when you hit someone with incendiary ammo, how much char damage you're going to deal is going to depend on a handful of factors. This chart lays some of that out. Big shout out to Micro from my Discord for gathering some of this information. All these damages in this section is before any actual burning damage is calculated. So, starting off with the char damage you deal when your target is within the ignite range. You're going to deal between 16 and 18 damage based on the weapon. Compact ammo is usually about 16 damage, whereas long ammo is usually 18 damage. You can find the specifics in this spreadsheet here. Now, if you're shooting someone outside the ignite range, the shot's going to deal 9 to 10 charred damage, if they don't already have charred health. If they do have charred health, well, then it's going to do 14 to 15. Now, if your target is in deep water or within a choke bomb, the damage you deal is going to be between 11 and 13 within that ignite range. When someone gets hit with incendiary ammo, or the moment they put the fire out, there's 7 seconds until they start healing from it. Once they start healing, every 2 seconds, they're going to heal one of the charred health. This means, even if you're using compact ammo outside of the ignite range, you still have 25 seconds where they'll still have charred health. So, as long as you shoot them a second time in that time frame, you'll ignite them. Or, another nasty use for this is if you bring a Sparks rifle. That means you have 25 seconds to get that second shot in to guarantee a one-hit body shot. A couple observations here to be aware of. Charred damage does not decrease over distance once you're outside the ignite range. And the burn damage difference between compact ammo and long ammo is minimal at best. So, on one hand, if you're hoping to ignite people, that gives you a reason to consider a compact ammo with a higher fire rate. But charring people's health also lets you take really good advantage of the extra damage on long ammo, especially something like the Sparks. Your target only needs to be missing 1 HP for the Sparks to be able to one-shot kill before damage drop-off. So, consider which priority best fits your playstyle. Now, it's important I call out silencers. Now, it's important to be aware that when you're using incendiary ammo, your bullets look like tracer rounds, so they're going to be big orange streaks that lead back to you, making you easy to find. So if you're taking a silencer in particular, you need to decide if these downsides are worth the benefits that it gives you. In addition, incendiary ammo cannot penetrate walls. So you're also giving up that. And to pile on to the downsides, it also makes it really hard to fight around choke bombs or water, because it makes it easy for your enemy's hunter to extinguish any flames. Not to mention rain can make it feel like you're swinging your gun around like a wet noodle. Not only does it extinguish enemy hunters as soon as you shoot them, it also prevents you from igniting barrels entirely, which is actually one of the cool things normally about incendiary ammo. If you shoot a red or yellow barrel, it doesn't just start the fuse on it, it blows it up instantly, which can help really give you a strong advantage in a fight, even killing a hunter if they're close enough. Another environment trick is that you can light oil slicks on fire. Just shoot the ground on the oil and it'll take a moment, but it will ignite and light all along its trail. This can be used to better control compounds during fights. Now for AI, a couple things to consider. Other than meatheads, immolators, and water devils, you can one-shot any of the standard AI in the game. Just keep in mind, while they're burning, they're going to be screaming moderately loud. So if you're using Incendiary on a silencer and thinking you're killing stuff silently, you're not. The good news is you can still shoot them in the head and they'll die without screaming. As for bosses, it's great to use on the assassin and the spider for sure. Not only will you do the regular damage, you'll also do a little extra burning damage as they run around their compound on fire. It also deals the extra damage for Scrapbeak, but be aware that any of the tools or items he drops while on fire will become unusable. So if you want to make use of the pitchfork, medkit, or toolkits he drops, you're not going to want to use this ammo type. For the butcher, do not use this. If you've extinguished him, it will relight him. Now for some synergies to think about when using this. You're lowering the enemy's max HP, so anything that can help you put pressure on that is going to be helpful. Higher damage rounds like long ammo are going to appreciate the lower max HP on the enemies. So are the bleeding custom ammos like Flechette and Dum Dum. If you can ignite someone and then follow up with a shotgun with Flechette, they're going to be bleeding out noticeably faster. Another useful synergy is something with penetration. If you ignite a hunter and they try and take cover, then if you have something like long ammo, Spitzer, or FMJ, you can then aim behind the cover they're taking to take them out while they're trying to put out the fire. I should also mention that they emit light while they're on fire, so if they do step behind cover with holes in it, it is significantly easier to pinpoint their location for a wallbang. Incendiary ammo's benefits are more situational than other ammo types. It's undoubtedly fun to light people on fire. Here's a tip I had a commenter point out, is that if you have Vigor and you have that burnt health, if you hold Darksight, it will heal faster than usual. Vigor applies to that extra burnt health. But if you're taking a custom ammo for the fun of it, I would argue that explosive ammo wins on that front. Check out this video and learn how explosive ammo doesn't work how you would expect it to. Hunt Showdown's poison ammo provides a potent option for punishing players, pulverizing AI, and plucking chickens. Stick around to learn about everything you need to know about poison ammo. Shooting a hunter with poison ammo inflicts them with the poison status effect. It prevents them from healing and distorts their vision and hearing. It's particularly effective when you have a quick way to follow up before they can heal to finish them off. The duration of the effect and the intensity of this distortion depends on the ammo type you're using. Light and medium ammo supply 10 seconds of poison, while long ammo induces it for 15 seconds. These durations stay consistent regardless of how far away your target is. Whether they're at 5 meters or 100 meters, the effect does not get reduced. Hitting your target a second time does stack this to prolong the duration to a maximum of 20 seconds. As far as stats go for poison ammo, the damage and velocity stays consistent with the base ammo type, but the big downside to watch is the loss of penetration. Under no circumstances can poison ammo penetrate any obstacle. So, if your main rifle has poison on it, it may be wise to bring FMJ or at least medium ammo on your secondary. When shooting at barrels, poison ammo won't actually do anything to them. It won't ignite red or yellow barrels, and it won't even break green barrels. So, if poison ammo is in your gun, you're basically playing without barrels as an option. Here's one you might not have expected. Poison ammo is actually really helpful with some noise traps, particularly horses and chickens. While you can use it on dogs in kennels, I wouldn't advise it. You can shoot each of the individual dogs from the kennel and they'll die one at a time. The problem is that when you shoot the first one, the other two are going to start barking. For horses, it's just a convenience factor because you don't actually need to aim at the head. Tapping them with poison ammo anywhere will do the job. Now for chickens though, for some reason, chickens operate as a hive mind entity, and specifically when using poison ammo, if you manage to shoot one of the chickens, all the chickens in a kennel die. So this is the most stealthy way that you can take out a kennel of chickens. You don't need to bother breaking the lantern or using any consumables. One bullet from a silenced Nagat will take out an entire kennel of chickens. If you're enjoying the custom ammo breakdowns, give me a subscribe. I've got more coming your way. Poison ammo does work on pretty much all monsters. A lot of players like having the Nagant silencer with poison ammo as a way to deal with pretty much all AI. It can take out most AI in a single hit, and deals massive damage to bosses, especially if you have fanning. For grunts, hellhounds, water devils, and immolators, one shot anywhere on the monster will take it out. This is especially nice when dealing with water devils or immolators. It makes it a lot easier to pass through tricky waterways that water devils are guarding. And sometimes being able to instantly take out an immolator can save you a lot of trouble, especially if one catches you off guard in a fight. I had a bit here about taking an immolator out with a single shot, but Crytek nerfed poison ammo and you can no longer kill an immolator with a single shot. You can still hit them with it and they won't explode, but it's going to take several shots to take them down. For hives, you can't one-shot them to the body, but you can still one-shot them to the head. So just make sure to line up your shot. For armors, it's a little more nuanced. Specifically with the Nagant silencer, you can only one-shot them if you hit them in the head. Otherwise, you'll have to give them 2 shots anywhere else. But if you're using a rifle that has poison ammo in it, you can one-shot them to the body. You just have to be sure to hit a spot where the armor isn't covering. Now meatheads. It's definitely not going to one-shot meatheads, but they are weak to poison, so you're going to kill them a lot faster than you would with any other ammo type. In fact, using the Winfield with poison ammo, you can kill a meathead without having to reload anything. In regards to bosses, it's super effective against everything except for the spider. So if you find that you're up against him, you're going to want to use another weapon. But it's really hard to argue with the convenience of poison ammo on a silenced Nagant. So if you don't need the slot for something else, consider that. Now, what synergizes well with poison ammo? Well, for pairings, consider Flechette or Dum Dum and FMJ. If you're going to have the poison on a rifle and you want a shotgun with Flechette to complement it, you'd need to take Quartermaster to do it. But since Flechette is available in 2-slot shotguns, it can apply bleeding up to 65 meters away. It's a great follow-up option after taking them with poison. You can hit them with bleed damage. They're going to have to take time to stop the bleeding while they're still poisoned. Then, once the poison wears off, they'll have to spend more time healing the actual damage they took. That's a massive amount of pressure you're able to follow up with. Dum Dum ammo obviously applies that bleed too, but the Flechette on shotgun is going to be more reliable to hit. Another thing to consider is having a secondary with high penetration, like FMJ or long ammo on your secondary. That way, if someone poisoned hides behind something penetrable, you can finish them off with an easy wall bang. Speaking of poison and wall bangs, there are actually 2 traits that relate to poison ammo that you should pay attention to. One's for offense and one's for defense. With poison sense, I talk about an old trait called poison sense here, but that's been replaced by the new pain sense. It basically works the same, but it used to only apply to poison. Poisoned enemies light up well in dark sight. This is great because it lets you see through walls and figure out where enemy hunters hide for cover. Make sure to bring something with high penetration while doing this. That way you can find them in dark sight and pick off your target with a solid wall bang. The other trait is Mithridantist. If you're genuinely annoyed about poison but don't want to waste the space to bring an antidote, you can bring this. While it doesn't make you immune, it does significantly reduce the amount of time you're poisoned. Although not a lot of people seem to like this trait, and I'm not sure that its effects warrant the use of a trait slot. It's an option there for you, but there might be better uses of your points and slots. One major shortfall of poison is that you never know if the effects will work or not. Hunters who use an antidote shot ignore all poison effects, and there's no indication if the person you shot is affected by your poison or not. That's technically not true. Players who've been hit by poison will make the poison sizzling sound, but you're only going to be able to hear it if you're super close and there's not other noise going on. But practically speaking, there's no reliable way to tell if you've poisoned someone or not. You'll still do the regular damage, but the poison just isn't applied. As for lowdowns to consider, it depends on what you're looking to do. For PvP, the Sparks rifle with poison ammo can create good opportunities for you. If you get a chest shot, then they're stuck at 1 HP until you finish them off. Pair this with something that has good potential of dealing a little bit of damage. And as stated before, something with nice penetration is a great way to finish the job. And remember, if you are taking a Sparks, you can have 2 ammo types, even having poison as one of your ammo and the standard ammo as the other. That could accomplish the same thing. Now, if you want to try a meme loadout, try the Sparks rifle with the hand crossbow as your sidearm. Both the poison bolts and the choke bolts of the hand crossbow can go through walls. So if you hit someone with your sparks, leaving them at 1 HP, follow up with one of those and finish them off, even when they're behind cover. In general, any of the silenced weapons are especially effective with poison ammo. Getting hit by poison from a silenced weapon that you can't locate is panic-inducing. Take advantage of that to get the jump on hunters and win your fights. Now, as fun as it is watching people panic when you hit them with poison, it's even more fun setting them ablaze. Check out this video to learn more about incendiary ammo. Ever since it was announced, bullet drop has been the hot topic in the community. Some claim the game is ruined, and others are saying that it's just what we need for immersion. Well, now it's here. Let's take a quick look at what it is and what determines the weapon's stat for bullet drop, and how big of an impact is that actually going to have on our game. First off, what is it? Bullet drop simulates the effect of gravity on a bullet as it travels over time, meaning the longer a bullet travels, the further down below where you're aiming it's gonna hit. To hit your mark, you must compensate for this by aiming upwards. But does that create a problem here? In Hunt, you're usually aiming down sights on your rifle. You're gonna need to adjust for that. That means you're gonna need to point the tip of your rifle high enough so that you're not even gonna see your target. Or at least this has been part of the voiced concern. The merit to that concern depends entirely on the rate of the drop. So let's see what determines that drop. The new weapon statistic that has been added is called drop range. This stat indicates the distance at which you must aim above a hunter's head before you would miss your headshot. Technically, it will drop a little bit in that distance, but it's very minor. Beyond that range, you're gonna have to aim up above the head proportionately to the distance and the rate of bullet drop. This is determined by a variety of factors, including barrel length, action type, the ammo used, and the muzzle velocity. These factors work together to determine the drop, but that seems pretty complicated for the single number we're given in the stats. So I'm gonna break it down for you. But first, I should mention that this video is intended to be a high-level overview of bullet drop. I plan on doing a robust breakdown of bullet drop later. If you want to join in on the research for that, come join us in the Hunt Lab Discord as we dig into the topic. Alright, first is barrel length. It's pretty straightforward. The longer the barrel, the less the drop. 3-slot rifles have less drop than 2-slot shorties, or 1-slot pistols. Simple enough. For example, the Ranger Shorty is going to have more bullet drop than the Ranger. Or when looking at pistols, the Scotfield's base has a drop range of 70 meters. But the Scotfield Spitfire, that one, has a slightly shorter barrel and has a drop range of 65 meters. That's not a big difference, but it is there. Next is the type of action the gun has. The action controls how you get the bullet into the weapon. Basically, it's the mechanism that loads a new round. The tighter and more secure the action, the less drop. So, here you want less moving parts with a more secure enclosure. For example, single-shot weapons shine here, like the Sparks. Less effective weapons would be something with a revolver drum or even a lever-action rifle that fails to tightly secure the projectile. Bullet velocity is the next element. And it's not that this makes bullet drop less for the gun, but more so that the bullet travels further before it gets the chance to drop because the bullet is moving at a faster speed. Then we have the ammo that's used. This one is the part that's probably going to ruffle the most feathers. Keep in mind that the system put in place is there to assist with balance and not intended to directly mirror reality. So I guess tough luck if your immersion is broken by this. Compact ammo drops the least, then medium, then comes long ammo, which has the fastest drop. This helps create balance and have players choose either damage or accuracy at range. Especially since headshots are one shot at any range now, some people may choose to go for the less damaging compact ammo to avoid dealing with drop. It's important to note that drop speed is consistent within an ammo size, but the velocity impacts how far it travels as it drops. So a gun with slower velocity will feel like it's dropping faster. In addition to the caliber of the ammo, you have the custom ammo type. Ammo types like FMJ, Dum Dum, and Explosive will drop faster, while High Velocity and Spitzer are going to have less drop. Here's a quick comparison using the Centennial at about 200 meters. We have it with FMJ ammo, standard ammo, and then High Velocity. Even at that range, The drop compensation is minimal with high velocity and standard ammo. And yes, headshots are going to be harder, but it's definitely manageable. What it will do is encourage you to learn your ranges more if you're a dedicated sniper. But that's really only needed over 160 meters, which if you don't have a sniper, is a pretty good shot. If you're having a hard time getting the feel for your drop range, consider practicing with incendiary rounds. These produce a bright trail while traveling and explode on impact, making it easy to identify where they land. Incendiary ammo has the same velocity and drop range as standard ammo, so it's a good baseline to build your game sense off of. Then, once you have a good sense of that, adjust it up or down accordingly if you have high velocity or slower ammo like FMJ or Dum Dum. Each weapon has its own drop range. So if you're looking to learn sniping, you're probably best off to pick one until compensating for drop range for that weapon comes naturally. Then after that, you can learn other snipers as needed. To help you get a better feel for drop range, they've actually added something to scopes that wasn't there previously. The little thick black line at the bottom of your scope represents the drop range of your current weapon, and this will change even if you change ammo types. That black line, if you put the feet of the hunter on that line and their head is right at the crosshairs, that is right where bullet drop starts. Anything further beyond that, you're going to need to start compensating for that bullet drop. Now, how much of an effect will this have on the game? Honestly, probably less than I originally expected. I think 5 and 6 star players are going to feel it more than others, but mostly it helps encourage players to use their weapons within intended ranges. In general, you're not hitting headshots out of 165 meters without a scope anyways. Now, you have the guarantee of downing the hunter when you do, so it's not all bad news. The upside is that now there's a reason to use all 3 weapon sizes at ranges: compact, medium, and long. If, like me, you find yourself really bad at estimating distance in-game, there's a solution for you. The Spyglass tool now displays the distance when you ping. Start bringing this in games and intentionally pinging things to get a good game sense built of different ranges. In particular, 65 meters, 100 meters, 150 meters, and 200 meters would be the most important distances to have a great feel for. Most pistols' drop ranges come in at around 65 meters, which is a decent distance as long as you're using your pistol within a compound. The drop is not really going to be felt. On the other hand, I feel like shotgun players who bring a backup uppercut are most certainly going to feel the drop. It's not going to be like it's a rifle replacement anymore, but it brings in another great balancing lever to create diversity in weapons and loadouts. I encourage you to spend some time in the shooting range to get the hang of bullet drop, and you'll probably find it quite manageable. By now, you've probably found out that the throwing spear is good, but how good is it? I compared every throwing weapon and documented the results. Stick around to find out which one best suits you. I tested dozens of interactions with environmental objects, monsters, bosses, and other hunters. By the end of this video, you'll understand which throwing tools is best in each situation. We'll start with an overview of how the throwing weapons work mechanically. Then we'll move on to environmental, AI, and finally PvP uses. 1 week after I released this video, they did an overhaul on all the throwing tools. The majority of the information in this video is still relevant, but when it comes to showing the certain kills to different AI, I'm going to just clip that whole section because it is wrong. And in that place, I'll give a general summary of what some of the updates were and which throwing tools are best in which situations. First off, let's talk about how each one functions with similarities and their differences. They all function basically the same. You can use them as melee weapons with strong and light attacks, or throw them to deal damage at a distance. The spear comes with 1 use, the axe with 2, and knives with 6 by default. Knives come in a pack of 8 now. If you have frontiersmen, that changes to 2, 3, and 7 respectively. After throwing, you can reclaim them by picking them off the ground or pulling them from your target. Here's a good spot to mention a control setting you need to confirm. By default, you'll have to pick up each throwing tool individually one by one, but if you find the setting Auto Interact and enable it, you can just hold the button to automatically reclaim any of your throwables that you look at. This makes it so much easier to pull them from monsters, players, or find them on the ground. If you're trying to pick up one of your throwing tools though, you need to be careful if you're bleeding or burning. Holding the pickup button is going to extinguish the flames or stop the bleeding. It's not going to pick up the throwing item. In these cases, you must tap the pickup button to grab the tool. You can also rebind these keys entirely, so that picking up stuff and extinguishing yourself are two different buttons. If you pull a throwing weapon from something, it'll deal an additional 35 to 55 damage depending on where you hit them and pull it from. If you hit a hunter, that hunter is going to start to bleed. If they end the bleeding, the throwing weapon's going to fall to the ground. So you want to make sure to get in there and pull out to get that extra damage before they can stop the bleed. You can also pick up other players' throwing tools if you both have the same kind. I find that this happens if me and a teammate both happen to take the same kind of weapon. So just be mindful to not accidentally steal their axes. Now, where the weapons differ from each other. The hitbox varies between each weapon. The knife has quick slashes, the axe travels in a slower, longer arc, and the spear is a quick, precise strike. On a single bar of stamina, the spear and the axe both allow for 3 light attacks or 2 heavy. Well, with the knife, you can make 11 light attacks or 4 heavy. Even though they all spend the stamina to throw, you can always throw them even when you have no stamina. Keep this in mind, it's especially handy if you're carving through a group of grunts or hellhounds. When doing your melee attack, your character lets out a grunt, of course, unless you have Silent Killer. But when you throw one of these weapons, your character is not going to make that grunt. This means that when trying to keep stealthy, it's better to throw than melee. Also, hitting a monster in the head prevents them from letting out a death grunt. For maximizing stealth, make sure you're aiming for the heads. Comparing their speed and range, the spear travels the farthest and fastest, followed by the knife, and last is the axe. Its throwing arc drops pretty fast. Here's a quick comparison at about 15 meters. Note, they were all aimed at the same spot on this block. The throwing spear actually got a nerf to its throwing speed, and the throwing knives got a buff, but this general trend still remains true. But the only way you're really going to make use of these is by practicing each one and getting the feel for which one you like. This is the general order. Spear is the fastest, then comes the knives, and axe is going to be the slowest and drops the fastest. When prepping your throw, the spear gains the advantage of being able to run at full speed. When you do it with axes and knives, you actually have to slow to a walk to prepare the throw. They actually unified this. All the controls for all 3 throwing tools are now the same, and you have to slow to a walk after prepping for all of them. So this is going to make the spear much more efficient when you're chasing someone down in a PvP situation. Now, let's look at how you can use them in the environment. Throwing weapons are incredibly versatile. If you're only using them for AI and PvP, you're selling them short. With the exception of doors, we'll get to that in a minute, they all have the same interactions with world objects. If you've seen my decoy video, you can use them for pretty much all the same interactions as regular decoys. Of the 3 throwing tools, you'll likely use knives in this way more than the others. These tactics are of course very situational, but when they come up, you may be glad that you were aware of them. For lanterns, you can bust them up to spread fire, block off movement, take out kennels, burn bodies, or ignite oil spills in barrels. Speaking of barrels, hitting a green barrel with any of these tools busts open and releases the bees. Just be sure to keep your distance so they don't chase you down. Unfortunately, they're ineffective against red and yellow barrels. Nothing happens when you hit them. Although many maps have lanterns placed above the barrel, so pay attention to your surroundings and keep that in mind. Here's something that decoys can't do with the environment, but throwing weapons can. Hanging chains are going to jangle when you hit them. That means if you're sneaking around a compound, you can toss a throwing tool at hanging debris to throw off the other teams who are tiptoeing around the compound looking for you. For barred doors, the spear comes up on top again, but the other 2 do pretty well. Remember, knives come with 8 now, so they're even better at destroying doors than what I show here. The knife requires 8 knives to be thrown and pulled for the door to break. Since you have 6 in a set typically, it's possible to unload 4 knives from a distance, then run up, pull them out, and repeat. The second time you do that, the door will cave in. For axes, the best way I found is 4 heavy attacks and 2 throws along with their pulls. You can prep the door with strong attacks as your stamina allows you. Then throw 2 axes in the door, and when you're ready to push, you can run up and pull them out. That way you can have your gun ready as the door opens. Spears need 4 throws with pulls. This is another fantastic argument to have frontiersmen with your spears. You can then do it in 2 sets of throwing and pulling. Then, since we're already talking about breaching, let's bring up Concertina real quick. Slashing damage is most effective on it, so the axe is going to do a great job on removing the wire. Knives are okay, but the spear is almost useless to clear it out. I overlooked throwing spears when I recorded this. You can actually throw a spear to destroy concertina, so that does a decent job with it. For sound traps, depending on the sound trap, you can use these tools to either activate or destroy it. For kennels, you can of course alert the animals by throwing it near or in the kennel. A use case for this might be if you're sneaking around a compound with another team. You can throw a knife across the compound to alert a kennel. This will pull their attention in that direction and potentially create an opening for you. Unfortunately, unlike poison ammo, no throwing tools can hurt the chickens. In fact, chickens once again proved to be the most nonsensical creature in the bayou. No matter how many spears, knives, and axes you stick in them, they just keep on clucking. For all three throwing tools, you can take out horses no matter where you hit them. While this may seem small, it's also one of the biggest reasons it's nice to take throwing weapons. If you're not bringing a crossbow or a silencer, this alone is a reason enough to make sure someone in your team has them. Also, there seems to be a glitch that happens a lot with throwing tools and horses. If the horse dies right before you throw your tools, it vanishes into oblivion. I've seen this happen against other monsters and bosses too, but it's by far the most common with horses.
I hope you don't lose your axe.
Oh no, did I lose my axe? Oh, I lost my axe. What a bummer. So, if you're playing in a team, try not to both kill the horse at the same time with throwing tools, otherwise one of you is going to lose your axe. For crows, another misdirection you can do is scare them with your throwing tools. Because you have limited ranges on all the throwing tools, you're going to have to make a long throw to make this strategy effective. But it could be useful in a compound stalemate to throw off another team's attention. This one only applies to knives and axes though. For some reason, crows don't mind the spear and they just ignore it when it lands nearby. When they did some things to unify the throwing tools, that may be both for better and for worse. Last time I tried using a throwing axe on crows, it didn't scare them, and I assume it'd be the same with throwing knives. Just be aware of that. Next time you give it a shot, your results may vary. The fowl in the bayou just don't want to be as consistent as the rest of the monsters. Speaking of monsters, all three tools provide great options for most AI. Alright, so changes to throwing tools overall. In general, they're all great at taking care of AI. Right now, throwing tools kind of do the best of everything. Strong attacks can take grunts out to the head, or you can throw a knife to the body and it'll take it down. Knives are now extremely reliable for that. Your throwing spear can no longer kill grunts with a light attack to the body, so you're going to need to do a strong attack or hit him in the head. If you want to know which throwing tool is the best, right now they're all pretty usable. Throwing knives are probably the best. You can take out grunts with either a strong attack to the head or a throw to the body. They're great at taking out meatheads. They're great at taking out hellhounds because you have so many. If you miss, it's not a big deal. Whereas the throwing axe is a solid option in pretty much all cases. It's a little more powerful than the throwing knives, but you only get two. I think the thing that I really like about it is that you can kill grunts with a light attack. Even if you're on a stamina, you can still carve through a group of grunts with your low stamina light attack. And to me, because I've been using them for a long time, just feel the best. But probably throwing tools are the best, and then the throwing spear, and then the throwing axes. Hives are mostly the same as grunts, but in general, your best option is going to be a spear to anywhere, an axe to the body, or a knife to the head. For armors and their wired variants, all three of the throwing tools trivialize these. For the spear, you can one-shot with a throw to any body part, even the toe. Axes can one-shot either of them. For the armored, throw the axe at any of the exposed areas. For wired, it's a bit harder, as they're going to need to be facing you, and you need to make sure that you hit the head. That's the only way to one-shot them, otherwise you're going to need two throwing axes to the body. Knives take a little bit more precision for armored. You can do 3 knives to the body with pulls to finish them off. For wired, 4 throws is going to be the most consistent option, but if you manage to hit the head consistently, then you can do it in 2. Hellhounds always have the potential of being problematic if they catch you at the wrong time. Not only do they come in groups, but they move a lot, cause bleeding, and are difficult targets. You need to watch out for the ones with the metal muzzles. This deflects anything you hit it with. The axe is great for hellhounds since a strong attack to the body or a throw is going to take them out in a single hit. You can easily take the first one out with a throw while the others are approaching and melee them as they come at you. Spears trivialize water depths, enabling you to move through the infested water without even slowing down. As you enter the water, toss your spear at the water devil and pick it back up on your way over. This is fantastic for quick movement through dangerous waters. Next in line is the throwing knives. 2 knives take out one of these squid bundles. Just make sure not to miss. You're going to have a hard time finding any missed knives in the water. Axes also take 2 throws to take them out. The problem is you only have 2 axes, so if you can't find one of them afterwards, it's a bigger loss for your game going forward. Immolators are another creature the spear manages to trivialize. Send a throwing spear into its body to take it out in a single hit. It's still going to explode, so keep your distance. Conversely, don't use throwing axes on immolators. It took me 3 throws and pulls to down one. I highly recommend you just use the butt of your rifle instead. All 3 tools are decent and handle meatheads well enough. I'd say knives and spears are well above axes, but they all can do the job. For spears, you can finish a meathead off with 3 throws and pulls, which is really quite easy, especially if you have frontiersmen. Knives do it in 7 throws and pulls, but keep in mind that the top half of the meathead's body takes more damage. So if you're not landing your shots there, it may take an extra knife or 2 to finish them off. And also, it just so happens that frontiersman gives you 7 throwing knives. So this is a decent argument to bring that if you're taking knives. Axes also require 7 throws and pulls. While it's doable, it's going to take longer than either of the other tools since you have to do it 2 at a time. So you can decide if taking that extra time with axes is worth it for you or not. For bosses, in general, throwing knives and axes are not great options for taking them down. Whichever tool you're using though, you're going to want to throw and pull. If you have another option for dealing with bosses, you should probably rely on that instead of those 2. The spear, on the other hand, takes chunks out of a boss. One more quick note about the assassin. If you're throwing any of the throwing tools and you hit him, when he goes into the bug form, all those tools are going to drop to the floor. So if you're having trouble finding your equipment, that might be why. These breakdowns take a lot of effort to put together. If you get any value out of them, let me know by giving me a sub. Now, let's dig into PvP. Which throwing tool is best against hunters? Alright, for PvP stuff, the updated information is a spear needs a strong attack to the head, or a throw to anywhere except the legs. For the axe, you're going to need a strong attack to the head, or a throw to anywhere in the chest, upper or lower chest. Torso, I suppose, is what you'd call it. And then for the throwing knives, I believe we can do a strong attack to the... No, we can't do a strong attack to the head, sorry. You need a throwing knife to either the upper torso or the head. So the knives are actually usable in PvP now. The throwing spear is good, but much more limited since you can't kill with a strong attack to the body. And then the throwing axes are nice because they get a kill on either the upper or lower torso. Now, a quick mention for the traits that support these weapons. We have Assailant, Blade Seer, Determination, Conduit, Whispersmith, Frontiersman, Silent Killer, and Pack Mule. Blade Seer costs 1 trait point and lets you see throwing tools in dark sight. I mean, it's handy if you lose them in the grass, but really it's probably not worth it in most cases. Determination for 4 points significantly increases your stamina regen. This is a grade A fantastic choice. Likewise, Conduit is 4 points. Whenever you take a clue, you're going to gain 3 minutes of stamina whenever someone on your team picks up a clue. Keep in mind that it's going to be redundant to take both Determination and Conduit. Whispersmith costs 1 point and reduces noise for switching weapons. It's pretty situational, but if you like going for spear kills, this could be helpful to you. Likewise, a great pair with Whispersmith is Silent Killer. Silent Killer removes all the noise from your melee attacks, both from the wind-up, there's normally an inhale, and the grunt when you release it. Personally, I really like Silent Killer. Frontiersman, as I've mentioned a number of times in this video, is fantastic. For 7 points, you get 1 more of each tool item. For spears, this is especially useful. Then finally, Pack Mule is a reasonable consideration. You will sometimes get your throwing tools back from looting enemy hunters, and sometimes that can be disappointing not getting a consumable from that loot. Pack Mule helps mitigate that some. Somehow, I forgot to mention the assailant trait in the original video. It improves the throwing axe and the throwing knife's melee attacks. It's important to note that it does not actually affect the spear, so it's just with the other two. Before they gave throwing tools the recent buff, it was more valuable than it is now. The big thing is if you like the arc patterns that they do for the melee attacks better. I want to give a quick shout out to my Patreons and a thank you to you for making it this far in this video. If you haven't seen it, here's that poison ammo video I mentioned. The Hunt UI can be hard to understand. Ever been lost in the equipment shop? How do I know which of these pistols will work with fanning? Or maybe you're sick of being the last one to ready up in your trio. Or perhaps you're low on funds but struggle to find something cheaper to use. The solution to all these is the search bar. Stick around to find a couple of hints and Hunt store secrets to empower you. Did you know you can get discounts on the Crytek store with partner code HuntLab? If you're buying the game or getting a DLC, it's a great way to save some money and support the channel. I'm sure you've noticed the search bar here. Well, it may or may not be there anymore, depending on where they put it. Everything here worked in the old UI, so no matter where they end up putting it, what you're hearing here is going to be useful. The search bar is great if you're looking for a specific gun, but did you know it works on other keywords too? The keywords that work aren't always apparent, but I've got some here that can help you out. If you're taking something like fanning or levering, type in the trait name to see which guns work with that trait. Most traits with weapon requirements work for this. Now, all these guns are compatible with fanning. You'll find this especially helpful when facing a challenge that requires a specific ammo type. Just search by ammo type. Here I'm using Incendiary and choose from the list displaying. You can further refine this by selecting the other filters, but you probably already knew that. This one you may not, and it'll help you build up your Hunt dollar collection. Whether you're low on cash or just like seeing the money go up, in the search bar you can enter the word owned. Now the displayed items will only include items that you already own, which basically means they're free. I tend to stick to the same handful of guns, so this is also a great reminder for me to loosen up and take a premium loadout every now and then. Those 28 Dolchers aren't going to use themselves. Some other keywords that might help out include melee, which presents all the guns with melee attachments, scope for scoped guns, or if equipping tools, you can use keywords like health or stamina or explosive, and that's going to limit the displayed items accordingly. Just remember that it only displays items that fit into the slot you've selected. So if you select a tool slot, weapons aren't going to show and only tools will. You can manage your search by the icons above. Keep in mind that these buttons limit your search. If you have the 3 slot icon selected, then only 3 slot items are going to appear. Remember to click the favorites star to mark your most loved weapons. Then to view them, you can simply select the star icon. That way, like any sane person, you can make sure that your Vetterli is always easy to get to. As we all know, the Vetterli is betterly. Speaking of which, I analyzed the Vetterli over 100 kills and gave a breakdown of each variant. Click here to see that video. The Dark Dynamite Satchel is here. And it's basically a new consumable that's a large dynamite bundle. This plays unlike anything else we currently have in the arsenal. So the Dark Dynamite is a consumable, so you can take up to 4 of them, and they cost $200 to purchase. So they're definitely on the pricey side, being the most expensive consumable we currently have. Once in-game, you can take them and place them anywhere, either on the ground or the wall. Now, once they're placed, you can go ahead and channel Darksight and choose the satchel that you want to detonate. After a brief charge in Darksight, they let off a blast that's identical to a big dynamite bundle. When you place it, it lets out a constant ambient whooshing kind of noise. So if you hear this, you know a dynamite satchel is nearby. Now it's pretty loud, so it's going to be quite noticeable. So let's see how loud the dynamite satchel actually is. When can you start noticing it's there? When I'm right up next to it, it's actually pretty loud. So let's start backing away and see where it's no longer readily noticeable. There there? I saw 26 meters. Okay, so it's about 25 meters when you're going to be able to first start hearing it. The other thing to keep an eye out for is the glowing eye on the satchel. So between the light and the constant noise, those are going to be your indicators if a satchel is nearby. Now, I wasn't able to do any of the early testing with another player, so I didn't get to test if there's a disarm animation if another player finds the satchel. But what I do know is, like other consumables, if the satchel takes damage, it will detonate. So if you spot a satchel, you can take it out. Remember, it's as big as a large dynamite bundle, so you'll want to keep your distance. What are other ways you can deal with it? Well, let's go ahead and throw a choke bomb on there and see what that does. With the satchel choked, I cannot trigger the explosion. So as the choke bomb dissipates, let's go ahead and see if we can detonate it. Yes, so choke bomb does not disarm it. A choke bomb just prevents that detonation. Okay, so it won't explode in the choke. How about in water? No, if it's submerged, the blast icon still shows up in dark sight, but they're not going to let you actually detonate it. So how far away can we make that detonation happen? You can detonate your satchel out to 50 meters. How far does that actually look like in game? There, it's going to be right about this distance. My satchel is right there, and if I back up, I can't detonate it. There we go. If I move forward, I can. But remember, if you shoot a satchel, it will explode, and that's where things get out of hand. So if you're out of 50 meters, you can still detonate it, but you're just going to need to shoot it, which is probably going to be hard with regular ammo. But here's where explosive ammo comes in. The blast radius of explosive ammo will trigger the detonation on the dark satchel. So if you're going to try and be detonating these at range, doing so with explosive ammo is going to be significantly easier. But if explosive ammo sets off a dark satchel, does that mean they can chain react? Let's give that one a try. Here I have 3 satchels set down. I'm going to trigger the one on the right. Let's see if the others are going to explode. All 3 go up in flames. That means you can carpet an area with a set of dark satchels and watch them all ignite and potentially blow up a whole floor of a building. But let's see if we can push this out even further. What if we took a dark satchel and tried treating it like a red barrel, pairing it with an alert mine? Let's see if an alert mine's going to trigger the dark satchel for an instant death trap. All right, there we have the dark satchel down next to an alert trap. Let's give it a shot. The answer is yes. We now have portable death traps wherever we want. So then the next question I have is, how far away does that alert trap need to be to the dark satchel? Okay, so I tested 2 things. First of all, it does need to be pretty close to the alert mine in order to set it off. Secondly, if you yourself are on fire, you're not going to set the dark satchel off. Interesting note about the fire is that if the dark satchel is on a wall at chest height and you're on fire and you brush up against it, it will ignite in those cases. It's important to note that you can actually place the dark satchel on either side of the alert mine. It doesn't have to be on the side that has the flare. And in addition, if there's a larger walkway you want to try and cover, you can actually string together multiple alert mines to extend the tripping area. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more visible, but if you put it in a spot where there's grass or mud or some other thing obscuring them, you may get away with it. They also don't let you pick your own dark satchels up, so once they're down, they're down. Unlike traps, you can't reposition them. So there are some sneaky places where you can place these. An interesting one is on the edge of a door frame. If you place it right on the edge, when the blast goes off, it's going to destroy the door, and it'll take out any hunters that's standing near the door on the other side. This could be effectively potent if you're using it on a barred door. The fact that you can place it on either walls or floors really gives you a lot of opportunities to place it in hard to find areas. A good general spot would be, for example, above a door frame. Poison ammo will not set off the satchel. It's also important to note that throwing tools won't set off the satchel. Overall, I think the Dark Dynamite satchel is a fun addition to the game. I think all the opportunities for the great death traps or chain reaction explosions or whatnot are mitigated by 2 great factors. Number one is the price. It costs $200 Hunt for you to equip this. So, being a consumable at $200, that's going to add a steep cost to any loadout. The other thing is that noise. You can hear this pretty clearly out to about 20-25 meters. So unless you're blindly running in the compound, you're probably going to be aware that there's a dark dynamite at least somewhere in your vicinity. So it's probably going to be more of a zoning tool than it is an ambush tool. I should make a mention that if you put a dark dynamite bundle in the water, it will not explode. Even if someone shoots it or another dynamite bundle goes off nearby, it will not get chain reaction, and you cannot trigger in dark sight while in water. In addition, they've made a change to it. Apparently now you can trigger your dark dynamite satchels from beetle form. So if you're flying a beetle around, you can trigger your dynamite satchels. If you have the trait Dauntless on your character, you can extinguish dark dynamite satchels if you run up to them and click it using the Dauntless trait. I think the one thing that is probably the most compelling use for this is the fact that you can combine it with alert traps. This lets you have a death explosion trap anywhere you want. This would probably be most effective if you could judge which entrance to the outer ring of a compound a team's most likely to travel into. Especially if there's a vault involved, they would vault in, explode, and die. But if you're putting it further into the compound, more often than not, they're going to be moving at a slower pace and would at least know that it's out there. So I think the combination of its high cost and the loud sound it makes is going to prevent it from becoming an abusable strategy. When I first heard the announcements about the Dark Dynamite Satchel being a remote explosive, I didn't like it. But now that I've played around with it a bit, it reminds me kind of the beetle situation. When the beetles were introduced to the game, there were a lot of people complaining about how it would ruin the game, and how it was becoming, the next COD now that we're adding drones. Well, in the end of things, the beetle, I felt like, ended up being integrated relatively well. And if we're comparing this to the beetle, I would expect long-term this would have a less impact on the game than the beetle does. We already have death traps with concertina and poison put together, and so this is just another tool to create that same situation. The new way this impacts the game is now creating that powerful zoning options when people hear the sound of the Dark Dynamite bundle, and then they're going to hesitate to push in a room. Either way, I would encourage you to go out and try and experiment with it. I know I'm going to try and get a group together where we take 12 Dark Dynamite satchels and alert traps and absolutely plaster a compound with it. Most likely we'll probably end up downing ourselves, but hey, might as well give it a shot. If you didn't know, you can use the partner code HUNTLAB on the Crytek store to get a discount when buying the Hunt game or DLCs. It's a great way for you to save money and support the channel. If you enjoyed this breakdown, here's another one where I do the same thing about decoys, discovering every interaction in the game the tool has. High velocity ammo is all about shooting fast and straight. As the name implies, these rounds travel faster than other ammo types. Generally, bullet velocity increases between 75 and 125 meters per second. Typically, pistols get less of an increase than rifles. This little boost provides two key parts of your ability to hit targets. The increased speed reduces the amount you need to lead your target, and the speed helps compensate for bullet drop. While leading targets deserves its own topic, it plays a key part in why you'd take high velocity ammo. The faster projectile means your shot reaches your destination sooner. Here's an example of that difference with the Ranger at 100 meters while firing at a running hunter using high velocity. Now, here's your standard ammo. Now, for good measure, let's show you FMJ. Now, let's freeze the frame at the moment of firing. Notice the difference between each of these shots. You have to lead your shots significantly less while using high velocity. This makes all shots, especially while sniping, easier to land. It also extends a weapon's drop range. As a bullet flies through the air, it drops. But since the projectile travels faster, the high velocity shot will travel further before it starts that drop. The infantry sniper has a velocity of 400 meters per second with standard ammo and 525 meters per second with high velocity. If we shoot the standard ammo at 200 meters, it will have the same drop as the high velocity at 262 meters. And both will take exactly half a second to hit their mark. Even though the stats only say the drop range improves by 30 meters, the longer the bullet flies, the more of a benefit you'll see. For example, here's that same target. This time we'll compare both ammo types from the same spot. We'll include FMJ for this example as well. Then, to compare that increase, here's those same shots from 300 meters. The combination of high velocity's ease of leading targets and improved drop enable you to dome hunters more reliably, which is good, because that's where the downside of high velocity comes in. While you are hitting your targets easier with high velocity, those shots may be less impactful. Damage on high velocity rounds is reduced by 5%, which in general is well worth the trade-off, but be aware that you'll end up missing out on some kills you might have otherwise secured. The Vetterli suffers the most from this decrease. With normal ammo, the Vetterli does 130 damage. This means within 30 meters, you can normally down a hunter missing a small bar. Adding high velocity to the Vetterli brings its damage below that 225 threshold. The worst part is that you're not going to know whether or not you missed a kill due to this missing 7 damage. On other weapons, the damage reduction is less meaningful for the base damage, but it does mean that it reduces the effective range for two-shotting hunters. For example, pistols' damage drop-off is typically at 20 meters, with the exception of long ammo and silencer. The officer, for example, has a base damage of 91 with normal ammo. With damage drop-off, the two-shot range is when the weapon would do 75 damage, so for the officer, that is 31 meters. Now, if we swap the ammo out for high velocity, the base damage is 87 instead, and the two-shot range, that is where it hits for 75 damage, is 28 meters. That's a loss of 3 meters for an effective range to fight at. I consider the effective range of a weapon to be the ideal range to use the weapon in a fight. In general, this would be anywhere within the two-shot range. A great way to find out this stat for your favorite weapon would be to use the damage calculator at the Hunt Tools website shown on screen. The amount high velocity changes varies for each gun. For example, the Centennial's two-shot range is reduced by 6 meters, while the Frontier's is reduced by 5. Consider messing around with the calculator to find your favorite gun's effective range. Staying within this range will result in more kills with less bullets, which helps high velocity because of the reduced ammo capacity. That's right, when you take high velocity, you get less bullets. The in-world reason for this is that the powder for these ammos is more expensive and experimental. Yeah, it's easier to hit your shots, but you get less chances to pull the trigger. How much ammo you lose is based off the total ammo count for the weapon, and you're gonna feel it in longer gunfights for sure. The Centennial loses 4 reserve ammo, the Officer 5, and the Infantry 7. The lower ammo capacity of high velocity makes it less reliable for wall banging. Having fewer shots to spray and pray with means you're going to have to be more intentional about using it for lucky shots. In addition, that reduced damage also means that high velocity will be penetrating less obstacles. A shot's damage is one of the factors in determining if something will penetrate an obstacle, so trying to pen at longer ranges may result in some of those shots being denied. They made some changes to penetration, so this specific example isn't quite correct, but the general principle still applies. Take note that the change they made is that standard long ammo is now guaranteed to pierce at least 1 layer of metal. For example, the Martini Henry with base ammo can penetrate metal up to 54 meters, but with high velocity, it can only do so out to 47 meters. If you're going to equip high velocity on a silencer, you may be shooting yourself in the foot. While normally silencers greatly reduce the muzzle flash, that's not the case with high velocity. Here's a side-by-side of the Vetterli silencer, with normal ammo and with high velocity. The one with high velocity has a much more visible muzzle flash, making it harder for stealthy rats to remain hidden. The final downside to mention is recoil. High velocity has a bigger kick than the other ammo types. In most situations, this isn't a meaningful impact, but combined with the lower capacity, it does make it a horrible choice for weapons with fanning or levering. Stick to the other ammo types for that. Here's a side-by-side with high velocity and standard ammo types. I'm not moving my mouse to counter the recoil in any of these shots. First for fanning, and then for levering. Now for loadout considerations. High velocity's benefits almost always outweigh the negatives. so it's always something to consider. Here are some cases where it's particularly useful. What guns should you use it with? Anything with a scope makes excellent use of high velocity, but there are a couple specific callouts worth mentioning. While I go over those, snipe the subscribe button to let me know that you want more content like this. The Centennial already has a ridiculous velocity for medium ammo rifles. To begin with, it's at 600 meters per second, but if you slap high velocity on it, it exceeds the speed of non-Spitzer long ammo rifles, coming in at 725 meters per second, compared to the Lebel at 615 meters per second with standard ammo and 850 meters per second with Spitzer. With guaranteed headshot kills, this makes this one of the most compelling sniper options, especially because it's much more affordable too. Likewise, the Springfield Marksman really benefits from high velocity. Since you only have a single round in the chamber, the additional bullet velocity helps you make the most of each shot. You might even consider taking explosive ammo to blast open doors to let you better see into those compounds while sieging. The fact that the Springfield lets you take 2 ammo types gives you a lot of versatility. If you're concerned about the reduced ammo count punishing you, consider taking an ammo box to keep you topped up. Also remember that the compact and medium ammo get a decent amount of ammo back from crates, so remember to keep an eye out for supply points while you're out and about. But what should you avoid in a loadout? Well, for starters, as mentioned before, the muzzle flash makes it a no-go for silencers, and because you're usually using pistols at shorter ranges, you're likely not going to receive as much of a value from high velocity as you would from something like FMJ, Dum Dum, or poison ammo. High velocity ammo provides an effective tool for those looking to snipe or who need a little help leading their targets at the cost of damage and ammo capacity. Like other ammos, you need to weigh the pros and cons. For example, poison ammo sacrifices penetration for some powerful utility. You can check out my breakdown of that ammo type here.
Hunt Showdown's Hive Bomb is a perfect combination of Hunt's lore and mechanics coming together to create something truly special. You see, the Hive is the remains of a person who's now infested with poisonous wasps. When you wander too close, the swarm inside of her bursts forth and attacks you. Now, someone with no respect for their own safety decided to go ahead and gather these wasps up into a jar as a weapon to throw at rival hunters. Stick around to learn the ins and outs of the Hive Bomb, including the best ways to get one off you and why you want one when you're heading into the bayou. When you throw the Hive Bomb, it's going to hit something and the jar is going to burst open, releasing the poisonous wasps inside. Those wasps are going to look around and find the nearest hunter in line of sight and attack them. It has a detection range of 25 meters, meaning any enemy hunter is in that range, it'll detect and it'll fly towards. It does this through line of sight, not through sound. So if you have a wall or some sort of cover between you and the hives, it will not pursue you, no matter how much noise you make. Be careful though, because sometimes the holes in walls are bigger than you realize and bees can make it through some walls. When throwing, you can use the range indicator to see whether or not you're in range of your bees attacking you. If you aim upwards, without picture, you can get them just right so it turns white at the end of the range. Here, they're not going to attack you, but if you move forward at all, they will definitely turn on you. When you get attacked by bees, they're going to do between 70 and 75 damage and apply poison. You can melee them to make the swarm go away faster. The specifics of what it takes to get rid of them depend on the weapon you're using. I'll be showing you the best ways to get rid of a hive swarm later on in the video. Note that if you have an antidote shot going, it's not going to reduce the damage at all, but it will prevent the poison effect from happening to you, so you're just going to be losing health, meaning you could even heal in the middle of being attacked. So when do you actually want to use the hive bomb? Well, some of the most useful times are going to be for breaching. If you can throw this in a lair, you can wait to see if you hear anyone either running or meleeing. Then, while they're distracted with the hive, you can jump in. Someone brought up the point that if you're in the lair and someone throws a bee and they miss you, you can start meleeing to make them think that the bees got you and they can jump in and take advantage of that, while in reality you're sitting there ready to take them on when they pop through the window. If you're using it in this way, it's often nice to have some penny shot with you, either in the penny shot Derringer or on a shotgun. These make quick work for doors, so you can throw your hive in and follow up, knocking down the door and taking them out while they're distracted with the bees. An interesting follow-up that Jaeger pointed out is that if you throw multiple hive bombs at someone, they will both attack, and depending on the weapon they have, they may only attack one swarm at a time. Now, they'll only receive damage from one swarm at any moment, but once the first swarm is downed, then the second swarm is still there and they need to deal with that. So the damage doesn't stack per se, but both hives will linger independently and need to be taken down. Next is zoning. The bees will stay out for 30 seconds. So if you have a tense situation and you need to make sure you're clear on one side, you can throw bees to block a doorway or even cover a downed body. Personally, I like using bees to create no-win scenarios, especially in combination with bleeding. If you've already got someone on the ropes with bleeding, you can throw a hive bomb on them. Then they either have to run from the bees and die to the bleed, or they have to stop the bleed and die to the bees. And then the third situation I find them the most useful is for finding hiding hunters, whether you know exactly where they are or not. Because the 25 meters is such a huge range, you can cover a lot of ground with a single swarm. You can throw it into a bush where you think somebody's hiding, or even behind cover if you know someone's crouching there just out of sight. Now, there's only a handful of traits that really matter with the hive bomb. First of all, is going to be shadow. Now, this is a scarce trait, so you can't count on having it, but when you do have it, know that the hive bomb is actually going to ignore you because their targeting is based on line of sight, and with shadow, monsters can't see you. So that means the hive bomb isn't going to be able to target and attack you. The next trait is pain sense. With pain sense, you can see nearby bleeding, poisoned, and burning hunters well in dark sight. This is useful because oftentimes when you throw a hive bomb at someone, they're going to be running and hiding. So this makes it easy to follow up either with a shot that penetrates through a wall and kills them, or just so you know exactly where they are so you're not caught off guard when rounding that corner. Next is Mithridatist. Now, this one is only if the hive swarm ends up attacking you, so you can bring it in a defensive fashion, or, as a rule, half of hive bombs end up attacking their owners anyway. Bringing this is going to drastically reduce the time you need to recover from being poisoned from the hive swarm. Then I should also point out Pitcher. Pitcher is going to increase your throw range for all items that use the aim helper, meaning hive bombs. Because you can barely throw hive bombs outside of the range that they can attack you, it's especially nice to have Pitcher to extend that range even further. So if you have the problem of your own hives always attacking you, try taking Pitcher to give you more opportunities to throw it. Hive bombs have an interesting interaction with water. When you throw them in water, they don't break, and they're just going to float there. But they're actually still active, so what that means is if they ever take damage, they're going to bust open and attack whoever's nearby. This can be used for some extraction traps, where you throw hive bombs in the water around an extraction, and then you can either use dynamite or a sniper or something with explosive ammo to set them off. But you don't actually need explosive ammo to trigger them. Shooting them with any bullet will do. Nice thing about the explosive ammo is that you're going to be able to explode more than one, and you don't need to hit the tiny target exactly to make it go off. Now, there are a couple items that have interesting interactions with them. The bomb launcher, when you shoot the standard ammo, the explosive spear, what it's going to do is it's going to break the jar, then the explosive is going to stay where the hive bomb was and detonate above the water. Well, the drop is going to make that difficult to do at a range. It is an interesting interaction. You can also do the same thing with sticky bombs. So, with the hive bomb in the water, you can aim your crosshairs just so it lands on the beehive. And the sticky bomb will float where the jar was above the water. So, now what are the best way to get rid of hive swarms? First of all, anything that's fire-based, more or less, is going to take care of them. So, that includes fusees, flares, Dragon's Breath ammo used to be able to, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be able to do it normally anymore. If you shoot at the body of the hive, It just goes right through them. But if you shoot at the ground right below them, then it's going to make them disperse. I assume this is a bug. I'm not entirely sure. So if you have Dragon's Breath, you have to shoot the ground directly below the hive right now. Hopefully that'll get fixed and you can go back to shooting the main body of the swarm. Any form of fire is going to kill the bees, whether that comes from a lantern or something else. That even includes open world fires. So we'll throw the bees here, and as they fly towards me, they're going to pass over this, and they will burn up. I've actually had fights where someone threw a firebomb and then later they threw a hive bomb at me, and I was able to walk around the flames on the ground to have their own firebomb kill out their own hive. So be aware of your surroundings. Interestingly enough, this also applies to when you're on fire. If you're on fire, fire on you is going to pass to the hive swarm and extinguish them. So this is a good reminder not to run fire and hive bombs in the same loadout. Otherwise you'll be doing yourself a disservice and your enemy a favor. So incendiary ammo, whether you fire at the ground or at the hive swarm, isn't going to destroy them. So it's a little different than something like the Dragon's Breath. So choke bombs are going to be a little bit different. When you throw the jar into a choke bomb, the jar isn't going to disappear and it will continue traveling through, but the swarm itself is going to be destroyed by the choke bomb. So if you throw a hive bomb into a choke bomb and it breaks there, the hive is immediately going to go away. But you can throw your hive bomb through a choke bomb, potentially in a layer that's being blocked off. And it's going to break and the swarm will open up on the other side. As long as the swarm doesn't fly into the choke bomb, it's going to be okay. Now, the most common way that you're probably going to be taking care of the hive bomb is with a rifle butt. 2 strong attacks are going to take out the hive swarm. Now notice, after you actually kill the hive, it sticks around about a second or 2 before it dissipates. So if you didn't notice that, you've probably been wasting your time and taking an extra melee attack on the hive that you didn't need to. Congratulations to Jaeger and DJ Spencer for winning skins for assisting me with the research. If you'd like to join in on those conversations, I will be posting future topics. But here's the results of what they found. These are screenshots that Jaeger shared of documents he put together that outline the best way to kill hives in every situation. You can find them in the research and findings section on my Discord under the hive bomb topic. Important things to note is that 1-slot melee weapons pretty much take care of a hive bomb in 1 hit regardless of what you're doing. 3-slot weapons with stock take care of it with 2 heavy attacks. The knuckle knife can do it with 2 light attacks. And so take a minute, look through these images, and find the weapons that you use to find the most effective way to take care of hive swarms. I think the most important piece of information I found out is that the hive actually lingers a minute after you've done enough damage to destroy it. Thank you for making it this far in this video. Thank you to everyone who left comments correcting the errors they saw or the additions to my own research. If you want to support Hunt Lab and make sure I'm able to keep making this content, please like, subscribe, and share the videos, and if you want to go above and beyond, you can contribute directly on Patreon. But I'll see you next time, and here's to a great 2025. I'll see you in the bayou.